Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burning Wheel. We have new characters. We have many skills. We have the tools that we need to get things done. But will we? I wonder. I'm actually very curious. It was going around in chat. We have a dwarf and an elf. Well, we have two elves in the party, but Andrew, I'll let you introduce them to us later. But I'm curious about how emotional attributes will change the tenor of the game. This is a very large jump away from what we've been doing so far, and I'm super excited to see how it works.
Yeah.
As you can see, my cast now has name tags for their characters, which is exciting. I did laugh out loud when I read your character's name for the first time, Colin. I can't imagine a character with that name not being like an intolerable goof. I'm excited. To see how you play them. So we did character creation last time, so we have some sort of mostly kind of complete characters. There's probably little bits and pieces to catch up on, so I wanted to make sure we got a chance to do that, because one of the cruelest things a person can do to another person is be like, well, you're mostly done doing your Burning Wheel character. Go finish it yourself. That's not nice. And I don't want to do that to you.
Homework, blah.
So we'll talk over what might remain to be done, especially since these characters are more complicated and you have some sort of more work to do than we did on the last ones. So I want to real quickly let me pop open any given character here. The first thing that I think I want to do, because it's confusing even to me after like 10 years of playing this stupid game, let's do the mortal wounds thing. Let's figure out how much it will take to kill you, because it doesn't matter until it really matters. So Burning Wheel,
out just like being killed by orcs.
Yeah, totally. You start in a pitched battle with some orcs. We're gonna start with a mass fight, and it's gonna take 4 episodes to do. No, I would not.
And then we can talk about character.
Yeah, I'm lying. That's not what we're gonna do. Okay, so there's a thing in Burning Wheel that instead of hit points, which is a nice and simple way to go from I'm alive, I'm not going to be alive very much longer, now I'm dead. In this, we use the wound tolerance grayscale, which is on the combat part of your character sheet. And it's a way of figuring out how bad something hurts when it hits you, and a way to differentiate how badly the same hit affects different people. So, like, if you are a scrawny librarian versus a burly dwarf, the same force blow will wound you differently. So to sort that out, it is mercifully the same for everybody. Aside from, I made a note, Jess, your character, you round up on this stuff because you're a dwarf.
You eat rocks and you're made of rocks.
Exactly, you're made out of rocks. So we start by determining you have your mortal wound sorted out already. That should be, if you want to double check the math, it is the average of your power and fort. So you add them together, round those, divided by 2, and then round down. Now, if you are Jess, don't round down, round up.
Okay.
And then add 6 to that number. Does everybody have a number? Do you have a whole number in your mind?
No.
I have my number.
Let's do it again. All right, so okay, hold on. First though, Suzanne, is your character's name pronounced Bernard or Bernard?
Bernard.
Bernard. All right. Librarian Merrington.
Indeed.
All right, so for Librarian Merrington, we'll use your example. So what is your power? What is your character's power?
2.
All right, a power of 2. What is your character's fort?
3.
Okay, so 2, right? Because you add them together and then divide them in half and round down. So 2 plus 6. So your mortal wound is 8. So if you ever hear me utter the words, Bernard, you receive a B8 wound, the appropriate response will be, I am dead.
Oh, shit.
That is your response. I have died.
I mean, yes.
Keep that in mind. Make a note of that somewhere. If Adam ever says you take a B8 wound, this is what you say. That's the ritual. So you start there. Mortal wound. You can mark it on your injury and recovery tolerance. If you find B8 on the list, just click above it, and you'll see there's a bunch of truncated words. There's like Bur, Su, Lai. So these represent like bruised, basically, and then superficial, light, midi, severe, traumatic, and mortal. So what would be for you a mortal wound is merely a traumatic wound for Chanda, for example. So that's where you start. And then we fill in the rest from the left up. If you ever take anything worse than your mortal wound, you're especially dead. And that includes attacks of other scales. So if I think any of you take a gray scale wound or a white scale wound, you're toast. Doesn't matter. Even if it's a W1, you're out.
Do we mark this anywhere? Our mortal wounds, or do we just remember it?
Yeah. It's under combat on your character sheet. It's the third tab, and then where you see where it says tolerance, coordinate, and injury. Mm-hmm. The tolerance line, you can change those. So the one above B8, click that, and change it to Tur. So or change it to M. It's a mortal wound. It's a traumatic for Chanda.
Yeah.
So
on B8, I will mark
mark M. Yeah, not M. Yeah.
Okay.
So you do that, and then everything to the left of that will get filled in kind of like a weird way, but don't worry, you only ever have to do this once. So your superficial wound tolerance, this is going to be the SU. This is equal to half of your fort, rounded down, +1.
Cool.
Half your fort rounded down +1, and put an SU. What's yours, Merrington?
Mine is 2 then.
Okay.
For
Yeah.
superficial.
You're so fragile.
I know, I'm a delicate.
Don't get in a fight. So
my fight will be a run and hide behind the
definitely. Yeah. So set that to be SU, and everything to the left of that is BR, is the first one. You don't have to change it. Those are just bruises and scrapes. They don't matter really until you get a superficial wound. And then your light, midi, severe, and traumatic will all go in between mortal and superficial. We've created the ends of your injury track. These all get placed in between, left to right, between superficial and mortal, and you can set them apart by up to half your fort exponent rounded up. So do that math again. Typically, the only gaps are between superficial and light. You want to be able to put some space between superficial and light if you can. And then light and midi. Severe, traumatic, and mortal all tend to get mushed to the end. You want the worst wounds to be at the end, because if your light is further to the left, it means you're more likely to take a light wound. And you just want to pile up superficials and bruised levels.
Jeez.
And then everything after your mortal wound is just M, because that'll all kill you. And it's all death from there.
Cool.
We haven't had the opportunity to do this yet, but there's part of the macro I had written in where if you try to roll something with a mortal wound, it says you can't roll this, you're dead. It just throws an error. It's like, sorry, dead people don't get to roll.
Character not found. 404.
Exactly. 404, you are dead. So that should be your wound tolerances there. I'm gonna take a quick look at yours as an example, Bernard, just to make sure that it fits in here. Yeah, so yours are easy because it's like bruised, superficial, and then light, midi, severe, traumatic, dead. Yeah, so you actually have to. I'm gonna move them down for you because you need a traumatic in there. There you go.
Oh, I skipped that. Thank you.
Yeah. So a B1, no big deal. Everything else, less comfortable for you.
Yeah.
If someone
don't get hit.
Okay, so to be fair, if you punch yourself in the face, the worst you can do is a superficial wound. Just get in fights with other librarians, and you'll be fine. It'll be fine.
I have done that,
Yeah. So librarian fist fights, no problem. Cool.
Come away with some really nasty paper cuts. But...
Oh yeah, it's bad.
Okay,
books
so
can hurt.
yeah, Gretelin, you got yours sorted out. Yeah, look at you. So much bruising and superficial before you start to actually feel the wounds.
Nice.
Yeah, what's a mortal wound for Jess's
B10
character? Noted.
Yeah, B10 for you.
Like, wait, why do you need to know that?
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, everybody will be in the sort of like 9 to 11 range probably for their injuries. Did you get yours figured out, Octavian?
I missed the traumatic and such. I have
Sure.
the superficial and mortal.
Okay. So your superficial is 2, yeah?
Yep.
And your mortal is 11?
Mm-hmm.
All right, tough guy. So what's your fort?
I think it is 4.
Okay, so you can separate yours by 2. So that would make your
No, just kidding. It's 3.
3. Okay, so you can separate them. Same thing. Yeah, it's 2 because
Go
it's
by
half
2.
rounded up. So you can put your light wound at B4.
Okay.
You can put your midi wound at B6. And then you can put severe and severe at B8. Yeah, there you go.
It's kind of cool.
Cool. Yeah. So Octavian can take, let's see, 4 levels of hit that would kill Merrington in one blow. Superficial, light, midi, severe, traumatic, mortal.
Mm-hmm.
Wicked. Okay.
And it's interesting too because like the range can expand on both ends. So like
Yes.
Colin's track is much longer than mine, but it's basically like overlaps mine and then goes a little lower
Midi,
and one step
severe.
higher.
Yeah, there you go.
It's kind of cool.
Cool. Yeah. So Octavian can take, let's see, 4 levels of hit that would kill Merrington in one blow. The 2 of you are at the far ends of the toughness spectrum. Cool. All right. So you can, if you want to, kind of just like as you're going, fill out the skills section of your sheet. I just wanted to go over really quickly how to shade them, just to make sure in case you have a gray shade ability of any kind. So for skills, you just add them to the skill list on the skills and stats page. Just put the name and the exponent. If the skill is based on a gray shade ability, change it to G, obviously. If it is based on something that averages a gray shade and a black shade, it's black shade, but you add 2 to your current exponent. And like I said, you can do that now, or you can do it like when you roll these abilities. It doesn't really matter. The last thing that I wanted to check in with is your resources, because it will determine some other stuff about your character. So once you've spent all your resources, those points that some of you had many of, when you're done with that, there's a way to determine your resources exponent. So take a look at the total amount of points that you spent on property, reputation, and affiliation. So not relationship spells or like regular carrying around gear. Add all that up and then divide by 15, and that'll be your resources exponent. It's rounded down, but if you're within a few points, we'll let you, because 15 is a pretty broad span. So I feel like, let me take a look. Like for you, Jess, for Gretelin, you probably have mostly like, your Dwarven Workshop, your Forge Mask. You have a couple of very large gear related things. So your resources will stay probably at B1.
Okay.
Or B0, depending. So
Mine is 0 for both my characters.
Okay, so property you didn't buy. Your workshop counts actually as property. So that's 60. That's actually kind of a big deal. So 60, you didn't buy a reputation or an affiliation. So 60, you've actually got B4. You were rich as shit. Good job.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So your resources, you got B4 resources?
I mean, she's a dwarf.
Mm-hmm.
If she's B0, that would be like the most profound shame.
Yeah, it'd be rough to be in that situation. So make sure you transfer that to your active character sheet, because we won't use these character burner sheets after this, except to check circles. So Bernard, for you, it looks like
I just
probably a
have
similar
an affiliation.
Okay, so you've got a B1. You bought a 20 point affiliation. That's actually that's a pretty big deal. Like being a member of the Scholars Guild is evidently
library.
evidently a big deal. So
I have a universal library card.
Nice. Well, it's especially interesting because we kind of talked about there being like one main library. So this kind of gives you access to like places of learning. You have like the FBI badge. You're like, no, I'm a librarian.
Yeah.
And it's 20 points. So it's like a large regional or expansive group equivalent to a pirate fleet, a powerful clan, a manor or a state. Like it's kind of a big deal to be a librarian. You yourself might not be a big deal. But the fact that you're a
But
librarian,
I am though.
you are affiliated with the Librarians Guild, is like a big deal, the Scholars Guild. So, yeah, so you have a resources of 1, purely based on that. Kudos on buying shoes. Nice work.
Yeah.
That's good.
And
It's useful.
clothes.
Yeah, shoes and clothes. Yep. Cool. Okay. And then, yeah, so you spent your points, Andrew, primarily on relationships for your characters, right?
And gear.
Relationships
Like
and gear.
skill
Okay.
tools and stuff.
So
And like
for,
my characters were both pretty low resources. Like the life paths I took, because they were mostly like in the wilds and stuff, were not very lucrative.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because you did spend a lot of time in the world. So, it's gonna take me a few episodes to figure this out. Which is your primary character and which is your backup character? I mean, your child backup character. Whatever. Which character is your main one? Is it Chanda or Saba?
Saba is the elder, is the character, and then her daughter is Chanda.
Okay. Saba and Sia and Chanda Nithya. Cool. I like it. And they both have resources 0.
Yeah.
If you just
I mean,
stayed
we're
at home
like
in the Citadel,
exiles,
yeah, like a
basically.
grown up.
Like,
Cool.
we're
Okay.
in the wrong part of town.
And then Octavian, you had kind of the most resources points, hey? Oh yeah, look at you and your fancy pants stuff.
Yeah, I still have like, I have some remaining because I think this is kind of a work in progress, and I need to sort out my relationships at a later time.
Yeah, that makes sense. You got 44 points, so and you're probably gonna buy a big, like a big relationship or two.
Yeah.
So that's
But
fine
right
if
now,
you-
I did buy reputation, so
Okay.
I do have 3.
Nice. You have a national or major reputation. Yeah, this is equivalent to being like the king of a country. So people know you. You're like the president. Cool. Okay. You also bought a warhorse. You got some superior arms, plated mail. Yeah, you're kitted out. Don't let anyone steal that heavy crossbow and shoot you with it.
Yeah, we'll see.
That will end poorly.
Cool. Okay. So that gives you a 3 because of your major reputation. Cool. So the other thing that you would need to quickly work out is your character's circles. So circles is a really cool mechanism in this game that we can use to generate NPCs, which, if the previous campaign is any indication, will inevitably hate and try and kill you. But hey, you get to make
And
them
we'll
up.
kill them.
And then you'll kill them, yeah. So your starting circles is half your character's will, rounded down, and increase it by 1 if you spent 50 or more points on property and relationships. So I think Gretelin, yours goes up by 1, right?
And
Because
presumably Colin will have a really...
yeah.
Or
So what's
Oh, wait, no, I actually haven't bought property yet, so
Oops.
yeah,
Oh,
I don't actually meet the threshold.
yeah, yours might be actually, if you don't, you have 44 points, so even if you spend them on relationships. Did
I only
you
had 45.
Jess, did you decide to buy a romantic relationship to offset some of your grief, or greed rather?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yes, yeah, your forbidden love.
Forbidden love.
Nice. Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, so circles will be what you use to generate characters. So you visit a town for the first time, but you're like, oh, I know someone here. I know a farmer who lives in this town or whatever. Cool. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the. Andrew, I want to give you a chance to talk about your second character, and then we'll do beliefs and instincts, and we'll talk about how Artha works before we get started. So what's your deal? Why do you have 2 characters, Andrew? What's that about?
So my first character you can buy like a squire or a bodyguard or a retainer or whatever.
Yeah.
So I essentially did that. It cost 10 points, 10 resource points. And so, yeah, I have my daughter as a second character. She is two life paths lower than my main character.
Yeah. So she's got
she's
three.
a 3 life path. And she was born in the wild because that's where I was living. And then she went to the Citadel to be a clothier, and then a bowyer.
Nice.
So she ended up being kind of in like the elf equivalent of like the military, basically. And as a clothier, she like was making armor and stuff as well as nice clothes.
Yeah, because elves have magic clothing that is also armored.
Well, yeah, that too. So she has mostly like crafting skills. Like she has all of the elven versions of sewing, leatherworking, weaving, and then also bowcraft. And she has the thing that lets her make magic items, the Antiphon Union
Nice.
thing that I had to buy.
Cool.
And she raises silkworms and moths, and like carries them around in little boxes. So she has like a mobile supply of silk and stuff like that. And she's a super badass archer, killing machine.
Nice. Cool. So if Colin, if you decide to go with, like, I assume they'll probably be like it won't just be like the four of you plus your daughter. It'll be like a group of people that like follow. Like there's a bit of a caravan that goes with you, because like just your workshop is a wagon, right? Like you've got all your dwarven craftery.
It's like a cart that I make and sell stuff out of.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. So, Colin, if you want to spend some of those 44 points on getting yourself like a crew or gang, a group of supporting characters, then you can do that. You just purchase a relationship with whoever's like second in command, and then buy an affiliation and a reputation. So you can buy one die of each of those things, and you could have like some scars, or you could have like an apprentice in the same way. And the way that these characters work is the burden for creating and managing the characters is on the player that brought them in the game, but not necessarily always playing them. So like your daughter has like a will of her own, and you're not like 100% playing both characters. I might occasionally be like, and mostly I'm gonna just be like, you just narrate what they say and do. But occasionally I might be like, actually, I think they might disagree with you in this point.
Well, yeah, and they have beliefs that I'm writing for them. So like,
and I can look at those and be like, maybe they wouldn't do that kind of thing. Cool. Okay. So before we start, beliefs and instincts and traits and Artha and how all that stuff works. So for each of you, your characters have 3 or more. If you're a dwarf, you have slots for beliefs, and a belief in the game is something that your character wants or feels strongly about or drives them to do the things that they do. Your beliefs are functionally what fuel your actions in play and move your character through the narrative. They're also flags to me and to the other players to say, these are the things that today in this session right now I am interested in. So if you have, for example, a belief that's like, violence is wrong, it gives us the opportunity to say, yeah, but what about in this case? What if this thing? They can be things that your character believes strongly in, questions they have about the world or the other characters, that sort of thing. So we have room for 4 of them, but often you'll start with 1 or 2 and leave the space open. And then during play, you can say, oh, of course my character believes this, and write 1 in. I've found in practice, the easiest way to do it is to think of a thing that the character believes in and then pair it with something they're going to do about that thing, or something they can actually act on. You can make beliefs that are just based on the things that you think and play out that kind of conflict or whatever as you go. But it's hard to resolve, and resolving beliefs get you persona points, and persona points are useful to have to do things like succeed at rolls or not die. So we'll talk a little bit more about how these are rewarded in just a bit, but does anybody have, we'll go around. I mean, I think you all have one belief, or are like one, you have some partly formed beliefs. So let's talk about that and figure out kind of what those look like. Do you, Andrew, I know Saba has beliefs. Do you want to?
Yeah, I've got 2 beliefs written for her and 1 for her daughter, so I can go through those.
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk about those.
So, for Saba's beliefs, I must care for these wanderers as a wolf mother cares for her cubs, feed them, teach them, and guard them fiercely.
Okay.
So essentially, this belief is that like she is in a position where she is responsible for these people, and that means that she needs to provide food for them, make them better than they are, especially the humans, and then also like fight for them. Uh, and then it is humankind that will inherit this world. I will make them worthy of that gift, or I must make them worthy of that gift. So, again, more stuff about like elevating the shitty humans.
Matronizing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like the beginning of that first belief, especially the like as a wolf mother guards her cubs, because there's a degree there for kind of other stuff to work its way into, because like the mother of wolves doesn't like, she doesn't coddle them, and if one of them gets
Yeah,
sick
exactly.
or becomes lame, they get left the fuck behind or eaten. So there's a degree of kind of like intensity to that as well, which is cool. And it also talks about how your character, like it's an analogy your character is making, right? Like these are in character statements, not us making statements about our characters. So that like the analogy about the wolves is a thing that Saba and Sia believes, or would think in that regard. Cool. Okay.
'Cause, she lived in the woods for 317 years.
Yeah, that's a long time. I mean, maybe not for an elf, but it's a long time for a person's. Cool. Okay. Jess, do you have a belief or beliefs for Gretelin, Sordo?
I do, yeah.
Because you got 4, right? You have your special oath belief too.
Yeah, I wrote one belief and then one that I think is an oath.
Okay.
Because it has to do with like a specific thing from my past.
Sure.
So my belief is humans are our equals, and I will arm them with the tools they need to fight by my side. And that's going to be probably my sort of overarching belief that's going to take me a while to get to,
Yeah.
that I can work on slowly throughout the game. So I'm starting with that one.
And it's so does your character, I mean, my assumption is that everything is metaphorical, but does your character believe the metaphor of that as well? Like, because it sounds like you and Saba have that in common, right? In that you both want to equip, in the metaphorical or literal sense, the humans with their tools to survive and succeed. Is there an element of metaphor to it as well for Gretelin, or is she just like, no, we just have to like kit them out with cool shit?
There is, yeah, there
Cool.
definitely, but also like her main objective is like, make them armor, make them weapons, because she's a little bit of a dirty human lover, and the dwarves aren't too fond of that. So
Cool.
she doesn't make stuff for the dwarves anymore. Let's just say that. So
Right.
she's traveling to procure the humans now.
Excellent. Cool. Okay. And then what's your oath?
I don't care who you are, where you're from, what you did. They tried to take love away from me, but it is the strongest magic in this world. All deserve love, and I'll help all men and elves who seek it. Specifically men and elves.
Ah, that's so cool. Not dwarves though. Fuck them.
Yeah, they're mean.
Yeah, they're jerks. They don't deserve to be loved. That's harsh.
They don't.
I love it. That's so good.
Which-
I like how it's.
Does that apply to herself too?
No.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, no, because like, yeah, maybe she didn't feel she was worthy of love.
Yeah, no. It's just other dwarves.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So a dwarven oath is like oath with a capital O, like big deal, like sworn sort of destiny kind of thing. And let's take a look at the oath to make sure that it fits the dwarven situation here. So dwarf characters begin the game with an additional belief. This belief must come in the form of an oath and represents a pre-game bond between the dwarf and one of his relationships. So this is tied to the person that was taken away from you, right?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. oaths that pertain to the current situation are just beliefs. Acceptable oaths are things like my father's last words were to rule wisely. This I swore. It's perfect. You're driven by the oath and by the person that is taken away from you. And yeah, you've bought a relationship for that. So cool. Where is this person at? Are they like out there somewhere? Are they imprisoned? Or like do you know?
So they're a human that I refer to only as darling. Mostly to protect that person, because the dwarves, they found out about our relationship and were basically disgusted by it, and told me that I wasn't allowed to make their armor or their weapons anymore, even though I was like the chief.
Right, you're dirty now, right? Because you
It taints the metal. You can't be
man.
Exactly. So I basically had to leave Dwarf Town, whatever we're gonna call it, and I now live sort of on the outskirts of the human area with Darling. So they're there, but probably not going to be a huge role. I don't really know yet.
Right. And that like I mean, if
I don't know how the humans feel about it either.
I mean, yeah, like it probably doesn't make sense to them either, right? Like,
yeah, probably not.
Yeah, cool.
You're selling like sick goods to the humans, though, right?
Yeah.
So they're probably welcoming in that regard.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can be welcoming of the goods that someone makes and still reject them as a person.
Oh, definitely.
Like, yes, your swords and armor are quite nice. You're still gross, though, and so is your friend.
Your music is awesome, but I hate you.
I'm just assuming that like dwarven technology is kind of above human.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of novel to have this dwarf around.
Well, like human armor, like we were talking this before, like I figure humans are pretty like kind of early Iron Agey, like you are one, Octavian, you're like one of maybe like a dozen people in the whole world that owns a suit of plated armor, right? Like human armor, like if you took a dwarven sword, you just like punch a hole in it because it's crap. But dwarven stuff is a big deal, and the fact that you have a dwarven artificer, like you don't have the ability to mass produce this stuff, but you can create artifacts of significant power, like crossbows and plate mail. It's kind of amazing.
I'm an excellent resource.
Yeah, totally.
Prove it to you.
I figure, and we can talk a little bit more about the world too, but I was thinking about this this morning. I figure we're kind of in a period of like ecological upheaval too. Like it's probably like the beginning or the early stages of like a little ice age. So like shit's cold as fuck, and like I imagine that humans haven't domesticated horses to the point where like big horses are a thing. Like I think riding horses are still pretty new. So like chariots are way more like a thing. A person riding a horse would seem strange, especially because the horse would have to be huge. And yeah, I feel like there's this kind of like the dwarves and elves have, like you said, like technology, either ornamental or functional, that supplants anything that a human could make, both on the obvious Lord of the Ringsian like magical stuff scale, but also like practically. Like dwarves probably have been using aqueducts for 1,000 years, and the humans are like, look at this pail, it's full of water I got from a puddle. Only half of it leaked on the walkover. Someone's like, I invented barrels. Good work. Like it's still
barrels. You are like king of the world for a while.
Exactly.
Barrels.
I took wood and I bent it and I covered the inside with weird sap. Yes. Storage.
For the record, I do have a war horse, and I assume that it's the exception in this world, right?
Everything that I say about humans, consider yourself the overarching exception to those things, Octavian.
That's what I like to hear.
Yes.
Yeah, like humans are basically good people.
Right. Exactly. So anyway, we'll do world talk as we go. But so Bernard, do you have beliefs sorted out for your character? Awesome.
I have 2 beliefs.
Okay. Let's talk about your beliefs.
The first one is, it is necessary. Oh, wait, no. Yes. Sorry. It is necessary to record everything about our current history for posterity. The continued success of human civilization is dependent upon this.
Excellent. And I think that I mean, you use a lot of words in that feel
Yeah.
like really strong. Like, I mean, that's a belief that you believe that humans have a future, right? That there's going to be someone to pass this on to, that you're part of something bigger than yourself that's worth like carrying and moving along to the future of humanity. So that's kind of a big deal. You talk about civilization, which is a kind of a foreign concept to most humans, right? Because humans live in stone huts, you know, in the swamplands of the world. So being able to talk about that stuff is a big deal. So that's cool.
I'm a big picture person.
Yeah, totally. You're in it for the long run, even if not yourself, someone. Okay, what's your other belief?
Feeds in well to my second belief, which is despite this, I'm somewhat pessimistic about humanity's future, and I drink to drown my anxiety.
Right. So you're like, humanity has this.
I have concerns.
Humanity is going to be great. Maybe. I don't know. Someone get me
sure
a
shit
beer.
isn't yet.
I love
It'll
that.
be okay.
I kind of love that. Yeah, where you're like, you see the potential for humanity to have a history beyond 4 or 5 generations or whatever.
Right.
To be like, yes.
It's about like how amazing we're going to be. We're going to take over the world. We're going to be the dominant race. And then I turn around and see like 2 drunk louts
Yeah.
going at it. And I just go, oh, okay.
Totally. Yeah. It's great because it is really there's this formative age. And we talked a little bit about this sort of schism in humanity between like the current cultures that we see, the sort of tribes of humanity in this part of the universe, and then the splinter, the like Stygians that left, and then also there's this developing kind of intelligentsia, like academic class of people who can like read and give a shit about books and who care about more than just like the next season or whether the crops will survive. But that's the problem with being perceptive and aware of like patterns in time. You're like, oh man, shit is rough. I like it. That's good. Cool. All right. So those are great places to start. They'll give you things to act on. Having contradictory beliefs is really useful too, because then in any given situation you can put yourself where you pit your beliefs against each other and have to figure out like which one of these do I actually believe more in this moment.
Oh, awesome.
Octavian, do you have a belief or two, possibly about your own greatness?
Okay, yeah. So I have one belief currently, and basically I find the struggles and helplessness of the common folk amusing, though rarely worth my attention. So I'm trying to basically say, like,
So good.
no. I mean, yeah, that's exactly it.
It's perfect.
But I'm concerned though, because my one instinct that I have going right now is also a direct contradiction of that.
Perfect.
And I'm trying to figure out if that's gonna like vibe right.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can start instincts with you and go around too. So like your instinct, what's the instinct you have that's a contradiction to that?
I always help those in need, as doing so is the surest path to praise and glory.
There is nothing contradictory about those two things at all. I think it's your instinct.
I know that, but like it also has that.
It's
okay.
It's perfect. You want to have stuff because now everyone is going to wonder like, is he doing this because? And you also have the noblesse oblige, right? Where you're like, as a noble, obligated to by law or whatever to help people. So you're like, is he doing this out of obligation, or does he want everyone to notice him being great, or is this all just a practical joke and he's going to kick someone down a well? Like, you're an unpredictable person. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's really
Saved
cool.
you from those marauders. Now give me all of your coin.
Exactly. I saved you from those marauders. Now I'm going to burn down your house for fun. Yep. Is that your child? I'll take that with me. Come here, boy. Cool. And all of those things are your right to do. Like, you can do that. And it's going to make an interesting relationship between you and Bernard, because Bernard, you're constantly having to interpret Octavian's behavior for the Chronicle, but you're like, all right, so he's a little hard to understand. Like, is this why?
Why do you do that?
Well, so one thing I'm curious about is Bernard, like, affiliated with it? Are you sort of like the royal type historian, or is this like a completely third party endeavor?
I think I'm completely self-appointed.
Okay.
I think I wouldn't go so far as to say that it is that think that God / deity of choice wants me to do this, but I feel like there is a higher call for the
Right.
this.
So there's no element of like, okay, how am I going to spin this in a half?
You're not a propagandist.
There might be
Yet.
because I might decide that it would be better for the future of humanity if history was positive.
Okay, so like just in the name of optimism rather than like
Yeah.
loyalty to any.
I think that's something I'll probably be struggling with actually, is whether it's
Mhm.
better to be honest or better to be hopeful.
Yeah,
Totally. Yeah.
nice.
I like the idea of you being in the midst of writing something and focusing on one belief of being like, wow, what a heroic deed. I need to record this. And then you look down, you write, you look up and he's doing something terrible. You're like, crunch, 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 throw.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Like, I'm not going to observe this occurrence. I'm going to pretend it never happened.
I mean, yeah, like
Just
remember
look to
this
the bottle instead, right?
Yeah, this is only, mere years into, it's maybe a generation into the fact that humans have writing at all. So things like journalistic integrity, those are well in the future. We don't even need to get started on this. We're like Plato level philosophy, not not Hegel. We got some space there. So so that I think that'll be really fun. The two of you and your characters. We've got this sort of like paired thing, and it'll be interesting seeing where they cross too, where like Bernard and Octavian kind of have like some connections, and Gretelin and Saba as the outsiders and kind of focusing on their like external position on the humans, I think will be really interesting. Cool. All right. So instincts. Saba, do you have yours? Yours for Saba sorted out, Andrew?
Yeah. So my first one I'm kind of not so sure about, which is to always forage for herbs as we travel.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea there is I'm fishing for advantage dice when I go to sing the song of feasting and cook for everyone.
So the only suggestion I would have for that one is make the trigger for when you search for herbs more clear so that we know when you're doing it. Because if your instinct is to always search for herbs, you're fighting your instinct when you do literally anything else.
Right. See, this is why I was like, this seems kind of sidetracky. Anyways.
Yeah, so instincts work best when they're in voice for the character. They're like a reminder to yourself where you're like, don't do this, like never do this, always do this, or when this happens, do that.
So my second instinct, much better. When I come to a forest, always consult with the elder trees because I can talk to trees.
Yes.
So
because
I do that. When we go to a forest, I have to go and like introduce myself and be like, this is who I am. This is who I'm traveling with. Can we come through your forest? Okay, great. How are you?
Yeah.
And do that whole thing.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Gretelin, do you have instincts for your...
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I did 2 for now.
Mhm.
Always intimidate with Forge Mask when in conflict or in dwarven areas.
Nice.
I don't always have it on when I'm in like polite company and I want to be
because it's
with
horrifying.
people. I have it like kind of, it's got like a leather strap that ties around the back of my head, so it's just kind of like around my neck, I guess, when I'm not wearing it.
Yeah, like I think when you're not wearing a mask, it goes like on the top of your head or on the back of your head.
But it's so heavy, so I don't know if it would stay. I don't know.
You have a stout dwarven neck. You'll be fine. But yes, you can wear it anyway.
You can.
So I
You look
looked
like
it
a
up on
tiny
a
robot
visor.
most of the time. I imagine.
Yeah. But
So for this one,
when I am wearing it, I'm trying to intimidate people.
yeah, so I feel like let's try to pick this one apart a little bit because so is it about like I think the strongest part of this is the always wear the mask in dwarven company, right? Where you're like, if I'm around another dwarf, I'm fucking wearing my scary mask. I don't even care. Like, and is that to hide your face? Or is it to scare them? Like, because the dwarven forge mask is like you still having one is a bit of an insult to the dwarves. Like, I'm sure they tried to take it from you, and you were like, "No, mine."
It's to distance myself from them. So like kind of like when you put your headphones on when you're walking down the street when you don't want anyone to talk to you. I just like put my mask on. I'm like,
yeah. If your headphones were also supernaturally terrifying.
yes, exactly.
God, if only that were true. Just put them in and people are like, and they stay like well. Oh man, I want some of those dwarven headphones. Get them for me.
Right? Yeah. So it's different then, because like if we're like fighting a bear, then I'm wearing it because I want to scare the bear.
Yeah.
But
So
if
I guess like
around
my
dwarves, I'm just trying to.
yeah, my thoughts here would be like yeah, the instinct to wear it is obviously a protective one, either of your space or of like literally like trying to intimidate someone.
Mhm.
So the instinct here is in reaction to what? What is it that triggers you putting your mask on?
Me feeling either physically or emotionally unsafe.
So, I mean, you could say when I'm threatened or when I feel unsafe, put on my mask.
When I feel threatened, put on my mask. Yeah.
Because then I can be like, you know, you're in the court of the elven princess, and she looks at you in a way that sends a chill down your spine. And you're like, "Fuck you, princess!" Bam, scary mask. And then the elves are all like, "Ah, terrifying dwarf."
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That would
'cause-
totally be an act 4. That's like arming a thermal detonator.
yeah. Why should we listen to you, Master Dwarf? Just the mask goes on.
Yeah.
It's business
Whoa,
time.
okay.
That's why.
Yes, that's why.
Well, for gray, I just want to like really hammer home, pun not intended, how powerful 4 gray armor dice is. Like you could get shot in the face with a like. There's no human weapon that can pierce this mask, right? Like no mortal implement can penetrate it. Like you've got like it's a crazy big deal. This dwarven mask you have. So you know, putting it on is depending on how well people know dwarves, is like a big deal. So when you feel threatened, being like, psht,
Yeah.
that's a good call. Cool.
Rad.
Do you have another instinct?
Yeah. Always dance when there is music.
Yes.
I'm gonna be singing
Contrast.
so much.
Character
I
I
contrast.
know. I saw your thing. You were like, I sing all the time. I was like, yep.
All singing,
I'm
all
dancing all the
dancing. Elf
I do
dwarf.
have a lute.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're a composer too. Oh my god, it's perfect.
I intentionally didn't give myself very high skill though, so I think I play it like Phoebe play. But
Boing.
We're all just gonna be annoying the shit out of Octavian the whole time.
No, because Octavian's gonna. It's their song's about him, right? He doesn't
Yeah.
understand the words
It better
necessarily,
be.
but obviously.
Octavian is a cool dude. He is sometimes really rude, but never mind.
They haven't invented rhyming yet. You just kind of sing seamlessly.
Yeah. Really, like, yeah, really convoluted, like, Viking style, like, lyrical poetry.
And yeah, when we say people live in like stone huts, we're talking like long houses with sod over them and like very much in that kind of vibe. That's what I've been picturing.
Pre-medieval. Like, we talked about Dark Ages, but without any of the Roman infrastructure to get built on top of.
Oh, I was thinking like Patrick and SpongeBob. Stone. But
Totally.
Like a stone pineapple.
No, like
Under the
literally
sea?
just a rock that hinges down on top of you.
Perfect.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh my god, have you not seen SpongeBob? This is a problem.
Not enough to like
here we go.
immediately
Wait a
recall that the starfish lives under a rock that hinges up. I remembered SpongeBob lives in a pineapple.
it's the first line of the song.
Hey, whatever, guys.
I don't know that you get credit for that.
Don't take a big old dump on me about this.
Listen, we're going to take a 25-minute break so that we can watch some SpongeBob. We'll be back with more. No. Anyway, aside from Octavian Langley living in a pineapple under the sea, yeah, I mean, I think what we want to do here is establish that, like, we talked a little bit about cultural analogs, and like inspirations for the cultures in our campaign and stuff, and kind of where that comes from. But I want to cover the instincts before we have that conversation, before we have that talk, because it's worth spending 10 minutes and just kind of setting the scene in terms of what we can imagine technologically. But cool. Okay. I wanted to ask you, just so there was that bit in your first instinct that I think might be a fun thing to try out as an instinct, about like hiding your face, right? Like, it doesn't sound like your character has a lot of shame, but like among other dwarves, there was a bit of like maybe that there. It sounded like in that instinct, but it might not. That might not be the case. I'm just curious.
It's about
like,
avoiding conflict more than it is my own shame.
right. So it's not
'Cause
like
I'm not like ashamed of.
yeah. Well, and what's interesting
my
is your
bad.
character doesn't have a reputation. So it's not like you just go into any dwarven hold and someone be like, there's Gretelin the betrayer. They don't know who you are, right? They
Yeah.
assume you're just some smith from some other kingdom.
Too top secret of an identity.
You don't even have a reputation in your own kingdom. They've forgotten you, right?
They've already forgotten.
Yeah, you don't
chose
forget
to
though.
forget.
You got that oath.
I don't forget.
But what's also interesting is that your character is being wronged isn't it didn't turn into a grudge. It's still seen as a positive thing. Like you are Gretelin sees that oath as a positive force in the world, right? You're just
Yeah,
out there
she's like,
doing
I don't
good.
care. I'm in love.
Yeah. I like it. That's really
You're
cool.
not.
Super into it. Cool. Okay. Bernard, instincts. Have you any? And if so, what are they? Did you manage
I forgot
to
that I
write?
was Bernard. Forgot that
okay.
I was Bernard. I thought someone else was Bernard. I have two.
That's a thing. I probably will just stop referring to any of you as your actual names. Like
That's good.
Apocalypse World has reprogrammed me.
Yes, I have two instincts.
Okay.
First one, every time we rest, I write in my journal about the day's occurrences.
Perfect. So this will potentially earn you writing tests for practice. It will also mean that basically at any point you can refer back to your journal and it will have an accounting of the things that have come before. I can't be like, nah, you didn't write that down. You could be like, instinct, Adam. I totally did.
Oh, I never forget. Or I do, but it's written down. All right. And then I always carry a flask of spirits with me.
Excellent. Good to be prepared. So I'm starting to think that at some point, several thousand years from now, your like great descendants there might have been a woodsman among them because we had some similar experiences with a woodsman with some feelings about drinking and being prepared to drink at any moment. So
Ironically, my character is actually a woods person.
yes, that's true.
Oh, yeah.
I took the forester life now.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of the woodsman in all of us.
Oh, my God.
Woodsman's like one billionth elf.
We are all the woodsmen.
Yeah, so that's why when Woodsman goes to a festival wearing like traditional elven garb, and people are like, you can't wear that. He's like, yeah, but like I'm like a billionth elf, so it's cool. It's fine. I can wear this elf cloak. You can't say anything. Cool. All right. So yeah, so cultural stuff, talking about like where our kind of inspirations come from for those things, and also yeah, like available technologies and kind of where the world is at. Like do humans have ships, or how long has writing been around? Gretelin and Saba and Sia, can either of you or both of you read and write?
All elves can read and write
Okay.
in Elven script, and it's one skill
Yes.
called Elven script.
Yeah, same. I have the like Dwarven
Dwarven
rune
runes,
scripts.
Because as like any advanced society, they understand the value of education.
Okay. Cool.
They have all this time.
Yeah, totally. Well, the interesting thing about an immortal race that invented writing is like it implies that your memory isn't perfect, or that you need a way to transmit large amounts of information to another person or group of people, right? Like if you never die and you have accordingly the memory that goes along with a person that doesn't die, like why would you need to know how to write except to like give it to someone else?
I imagine it's more like it's almost an art form, and
For
that they
dwarves
use
it
it for
certainly
like
is, yeah.
poetry and all this kind of stuff as well. Like it's more it as a formal pursuit than it as a like pragmatic thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they would have like oral tradition and memory for everything. Because like so much of their culture is in songs,
Yeah.
which presumably they can't really write, or they can write them down, but I imagine it being a much more rich like oral tradition.
Yeah, totally. Well, because you have song and the dwarves have craft, right? It's not like here is a book. Like I don't think either race has books. You don't use Elven script to write a novel, and you don't make like books of runic script. You make swords with runes on them, and you make axes and archways, right? You make things that have letters. Humans, I think, are the first, because you're so short-lived, you're the first to like have chronicles, right? Like, what do you, I mean, how long has human writing been around, do you think? Suzanne, I'm going to mostly like lean on you for anything to do with like human history and lore in that
Yeah.
regard.
I think human writing has been around for a decent amount of time, but actual recording in bound books and storing
History
them
is
in
a new
safe
concept.
place is pretty new. Probably like less than 100 years, 100 years.
Cool.
I'm curious, do we feel like elves are at all observers of the human race and what they're doing? So, like, is there any recording in that sense going on?
I think the elves probably keep an eye on things because they have lots of elves that are just like wandering
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
back and then tell the story.
Because elf history is kind of eternal, but do they care about the waxing and waning histories of other races?
So my thought in this is that like there are lots of what we would consider like sentient or like sapient like races. Like there are great wolves, there are like giant spiders, there's trolls, there's orcs, though there haven't been like an orcish there hasn't been an orcish horde in like 10,000 years, because the last time the elves and dwarves got together they killed a bunch of them and they like fled into the dark realm or whatever. But they're like, you're not the only ones who can speak and think and make stuff and do things, right? Like there's all kinds of creatures that can do that. And I have the feeling that to dwarves and elves, until fairly recently, humans were like, oh, they're just another whatever. They're like, lump them in with the goblins and the rat people and the trolls and stuff. Like there's another weird, smelly monster race. So something has changed recently, and I think it might be to do
Books.
with sorcery and books and stuff, I think. Yeah.
The books make us dangerous.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Because maybe no other species has a sense of like their own history. Maybe that is like a thing. Humans decided by whatever means, they're like, no, we're going to be around a while. We're going to record this shit.
We're important.
We can't.
Well,
we
also,
matter.
like the books show us a sense of history, shows us trying to learn from our mistakes, which adds into that, as opposed to most races, which are just like, we're gonna kill people and then eat their stuff and then die.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It's about as much as orcs seem to get together for. Yeah.
I was pretty much going for it.
Yeah.
I
Totally.
have clan history.
Mm-hmm.
So I have like an extensive knowledge of dwarven facts, but my thinking is that that's more of a like Iliad situation where it's just like storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Epic of
don't
Gilgamesh
actually
stuff.
have, like tomes of dwarven stuff. So yeah, it's probably pretty special that you want to write things down.
Well, what's a little terrifying is like, I think that the elves and dwarves probably see humanity as the potential. They're the lightning strike that could start the plains fire that consumes the world, because like to learn an elven skill song, it takes a long ass time, and to craft the dwarven artifact takes a long ass time. But humans can master sorcery in like their childhood, essentially. Like they can start doing things that bend the way reality works before they die, and then they can pass that on, and they reproduce so damn fast that like
Yeah, they're like weird little parasite or bacteria things that are going to take over.
Yeah, they're dangerous. And that's what we talked about last time, about the dwarves and the elves kind of seeing them as like potentially a weapon or an advantage in the sort of Cold War that's developed between them, which I think is cool. Yeah, I like it. Cool. Okay. So Jess, what do you imagine like dwarven like civilization is like? Like we talked a little bit between sessions about like visually kind of what we imagine their sort of artifacts and stuff to look like. But do you wanna talk about dwarves a little? Should we do that?
Sure. I mean, I'm thinking pretty standard dwarf, where it's mostly like there's some stone structures above ground, but the majority of it is like dug out into hillsides, possibly even mountains.
Yeah.
So I guess like mostly hills, mountains, or clearings, not really like forests, would be pretty foreign to us. We don't really work with wood.
So you don't make stuff out of it. You make like the haft of an axe out of wood, but you can replace the haft. It's the blade that counts.
Yeah, right. I mean, the whole damn thing is stone for us. Like,
Yeah, totally.
yeah. And like you said, the rune thing translates to the architecture and the weapons and the jewelry and all that kind of stuff. So it's mostly like etching and carving and engraving, and that's how we actually use our language,
Cool.
is to put things into the stonework.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If it's worth writing down, it's worth writing down on an axe.
Yes.
Wicked. Cool. I like that. And we talked a little bit about kind of going like sort of like Phoenician with them. So like the sort of like curly hats and like the like less like Viking or Scottish dwarves and more like ancient Middle Eastern
Yes,
like
yes.
pre-Christianity kind of thing. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. Cool. So is there among dwarves, is there like a lot of like, I guess for dwarven, like often what happens in fantasy is that fantasy races become super monocultural by default, like that all dwarves are like white Scottish people,
Yeah.
which is totally fucking silly. But
Yeah.
so I guess my question is like, what is there a large amount of or a small amount of, like, because it's clannish, right? Like your
Yes.
family is how you track your heritage as a dwarf.
Yeah.
How much like diversity among dwarves is there, and how obvious is that to people like outside of dwarven civilization?
It's fairly diverse, but I think mostly the clans are based on region.
Mhm.
So obviously you're going to have like, more northern dwarves that are maybe like a little bit lighter skinned, and they need like longer hair to keep them warmer and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Whereas like southern dwarves are a little darker. Like I think perhaps I'm more of a southern dwarf.
I think it'd be interesting too, because dwarves would
But they do, like,
you'd be pretty
mix.
your skin would be pretty photosensitive if your culture spends most of its time inside. Over
Yes.
generations, you become paler and paler, and so I feel like having darker skin is a sign that your clan spends time outside
More
of the
time
hold,
outside.
like
Definitely.
adventuring or journeying or whatever. So there's a degree of that in the culture as well.
Yeah,
I think that's really
I
cool.
think my clan is kind of moving toward the outside because we have these like arched structures that actually serve as like common places that we hang out in, we eat in, like
Yeah.
meeting places that are outside of the hill. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. I think we do.
Yeah, well, because the oldest and most kind of like genetically introverted dwarves, the ones like they're probably like there's probably in dwarf, like if we were running an entire dwarven campaign we could explore this, but there's probably like a lineage of dwarves that are like, no, we're pure dwarves, we've never left the underground, like we never leave, our founder was born underground, and they're all
Right.
like albino pale probably,
Yeah,
because it's
like
like no one in the
super-
genetic line has ever been exposed outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they would
Or
be
they're like those like cave fish that don't even have eyeballs anymore.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
The most like atavistic of all of the like dwarves is this like this ancient blind king who just
Yes.
like was born unable to see, because why
That's so
bother?
sick.
We never even light a torch in his realm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's so sick.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. I love that. That's really cool. So Andrew, for elves, obviously going by your characters' names, you've got some like cultural analog stuff going on there too. What do you
Yeah,
think?
more like Southeast Asian, like India, Persia,
Mhm.
like a big mix of that whole region to the south of like the cradle of civilization, essentially.
Yeah. So like the dwarves, their culture is sort of like the Assyria, Babylon, Sumeria, like Tigris and Euphrates Valley kind of thing. And then there's almost like, if we're looking at human analogs, elves are further east and a little later, right? Like
Mhm.
yeah, okay.
And like in terms of architecture, I'm imagining like an elf building is mostly like a series of connected outdoor spaces that they like embellish with architecture, but it's really about, it's always about nature. So, but like that in the citadel or whatever, you have like some structure around it, whereas the wild elves just like live outside and have like more kind of rustic
What's the name of that? What's the name of that place in Game of Thrones that's like the southern, where the Martells are from? Where it's all hot and everybody's a babe and everybody has sex
I
with
can't
everybody else.
remember.
What's that place called?
All I
Anyway,
remember is Sunspear is a
that
thing.
Sunspear is there. I can't remember what it's called,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, I think because Martin took some of those, some inspiration from similar stuff, like that sort of Persian Dorne. Thank you, Arcade. Yeah, cool. So what's the garb like? Like the pictures that you showed me, and we can share some of these on the subreddit after. But like you're thinking like scimitars and like ringmail.
Well, a lot of it I was looking at was actually like armor from India. Like they have
Yeah.
the coat of 1,000 nails thing going on, where like armor was like embroidered cloth, a lot of it, which had little like points on it. It was
So
all spiky
gorgeous.
and like, yeah, there's a very interesting like martial tradition from there, and a lot of the weapons just look fucking rad.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like mostly like very lightly equipped people because they're all about like movement and flowing around and being fancy. And then yeah, like in terms of what they wear, lots of silk,
Hmm.
and lots of bright colors. Um, yeah, and that like probably a huge variety of different like cultural traditions. would
Yeah,
be,
because you've had
like,
thousands of years
super
of
diverse. Yeah.
thousands of years of time to like have diverging philosophies and yeah.
So I'm imagining like most of the southern hemisphere within like the Europe, Asia, and Africa is represented by. So it's just like the whole southern half of that big landmass is all
Cool.
elves. They're
Yeah.
like very African elves in terms of like, I mean, yeah, like in terms of the garb and stuff like that, as well as skin tones, hairstyles, etc.
Nice. That's
And that
awesome.
may be so like Saba is looks more Indian, and then her daughter is kind of like half African
Cool.
and has like curly hair, and yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. So one thing before we move on to the humans, the one thing that I think is interesting about elves and dwarves in Burning Wheel is they have no religion. There's no gods for the dwarves and elves. Like they have culture and they have philosophies, but there's no overarching power. And that's the thing that definitely sets humans aside. Humans are the only ones who are able to have faith. And I think that the four gods of humanity, those are like another thing like history that sort of has set apart the humans. Like orcs worship night as like a concept, but really it's just like an unknown. It's fear personified. But the humans, I think the humans have the god of fire, the god of wind, the god of water, and the god of earth. And these four gods are human, like they're the gods of man, and they've like whether the humans invented them or found them or whatever, it's all still very much a mystery. And there's I don't think any organized religion around those entities, but it is known that they watch over humanity and are what gives humans their sort of special destiny. And I think that maybe we're starting to see the beginnings of like formalizing some of those things, right? Places that are sacred to certain gods, whether again it was decided or discovered, and I think that's something that'll play into the campaign as we go. But in terms of like human culture, based on kind of what we talked about before, I feel like the vibe is a little like we were talking about, kind of like Dark Ages-y, like Europe. Lots of like furs. I'm thinking like wildlings rather than like Vikings necessarily. Like you're just kind of like in a bad, nasty place that is the only place that was left to humans, and you've managed to like survive there. But looking at your names, like Bernard Merrington and Octavian Langley, like you're both very British sounding. So like kind of Londinium, which makes sense. Do the two of you have like particular thoughts about that stuff? Like I know, Suzanne, you were showing us some pictures that looked like sort of early medieval scribes.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of brown clothes because we haven't really figured out bright dyes.
Right. Yeah. What is
Yeah,
indigo?
I mean,
Who knows?
Yeah.
I like the grimmer, the grittier, the aesthetic, the better, I think, for the way humans are situated right now.
Because yeah, the contrast would just be absurd. Like my characters roll up and they're wearing like these beautiful, brightly colored silks, and you're just like clumps of dirt that move.
Yeah.
Well, and I think,
Like it-
yeah, I mean, I think like savagery is a survival method for humans, right? So like ritual scarring and like wearing of bones and like just being like kind of like when your name might be Octavian Langley, which might call to mind like a knight, but also I think there's a brutality built into the culture that is what helped you survive.
Yeah, that actually reminds me. When I was picking my armor, I chose plate, not full plate, but
Yeah.
plate mail or something. And I'm wondering, like, can that be more like, some sort of bone armor? I mean, obviously it conveys the level of armor, but like in terms of the way it appears, I'm not thinking it's like some Arthurian
No,
knight.
yeah.
No.
It's probably
Or,
like
a skull
cold
hanging off your neck.
cold hammered steel. It's heavy and clunky and not at all ornamental, except that you put over top of it like like red paint and skulls and stuff, and like
Yeah.
I
Okay.
imagine
Oh.
I imagine like slightly like really early medieval, like post caveman, basically. Like you can put some rocks together and stuff, but yeah, it's very much like like wildlings or like yeah. I
Yeah,
like it.
that's what I was hoping. What were you gonna say, Suzanne?
just that historically, knights were, especially with their plate armor, were kind of gods among men, and they were very much like they were celebrities, so the people that you gossip about, because literally the sun would glint off and you'd look like a glowing figure, and then everybody would be like, oh, I hear he's dating somebody, no, he's single. People would like put curls into their helmets and stuff and paint them gold sometimes to make it like, oh, I have a glowing head of hair and I'm very beautiful all the time. So
Well, I did pick plate, so that is a component here. I just didn't go to the
Pride is part of it.
here
Yeah.
possible.
I mean, I think awe in the traditional, like, people stop and stare, some in fear. Like, it would be very easy for Octavian to force steel tests in other humans, especially humans below his stature. And it's obvious to everyone that looks at him, and he's got this reputation, right? And like, so people know him. So yeah, like that kind of thing is still true. I think that like mythical figure, but I would say it's more like fear and less. The other thing is we're creating a setting that doesn't have any of Christianity's like respect for, or like, because pre-Christian life was not as big about like the sanctity of a human life as it was after all the Jesus stuff. Like in ancient Rome, killing somebody because they pissed you off was like a thing you could just do. And like, if they had somebody to protect them, good for them. And if not, maybe somebody would come after you. But nobody was like, but what about their life? They could have been important. It was just like, fuck you, whatever. And I think that's still
people
very
die
true.
all the time.
Yeah, I think it's like, well, whatever. Like, he was 20. He lived a good life, you know?
And I mean, I didn't read about this, but in regard to the reputation thing, I don't know if that's something I sort of craft a background around, or I mean, it's just like national reputation is the like largest span of reputation. But like, do I specify sort of the nature of that reputation?
Yeah, it's what you have a reputation for.
Well, so I guess what I was thinking is, I kind of want to have this thing where like, in my mind, that reputation that I have is of like being a badass, but in reality, I have this reputation for just kind of like killing.
Yeah.
And like, so people view it like there's more fear associated with it.
Oh, for sure.
Or like disgust than I actually realize. But nonetheless, like the gravity of the reputation is the same. Just it's way more positive in my mind.
Yeah. And I think the thing is that it's, whether how you interpret your own reputation is fine. What you establish with the points is what the world sees when they look at you.
Yeah.
And when we're building a sort of Dark Ages analog, but we're taking out all of the like divine right stuff. So the reason why kings are kings is because they have the will to be in charge, right? They tell people what to do and people do it. And that's just a thing, right? And so that's part of it. It's not like I'm the king because God said so. It's I'm the king because I said so, and I have other people with swords who say so, right? And I think that yeah, maybe like some of the clan leaders are starting to like, you know, court the cult of fire or whatever to try to like get them some backing, or they're like, you know, supporting the library because they think that's, because I think that that's kind of where we're starting to see civilization build. Like you built the archive, the great library, and then people got sick of traveling to and from there, and so built houses around it, and then they needed food, so they built some fields or whatever and started raising goats. And so there is sort of maybe like there's a chance, if things go well for humanity, that the library will be the first human city, right? Because it's slowly starting to like be more important than a bunch of mud huts in one place.
Mm-hmm.
Or it'll get
creates an
sacked by
interesting-
other humans.
Yeah, that creates an interesting concept that like the library was the first thing to get built,
Yeah.
as opposed to
It's certainly the biggest
a
thing humans have
stronghold.
ever built. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And it's kind of like a halfway fort archive thing.
Right.
They've had to defend it, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, totally. It's got you like yeah, because people are like, oh, you're building a castle. You must have something important in there. We're gonna knock it over. And then they're like, what the fuck, books? What is this shit? Yeah, this is the third or fourth iteration of the library. The first few turned into big fires.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think that's why ours is made out of stone.
Yeah, I like the idea of the library being literally like the biggest thing humans have ever built. Like there are humans who are living in like abandoned like dwarven tunnels or something, but the dwarves are like, I don't want to embarrass you, but you're living in a literal sewer. Like we left it because it was a garbage dump and it's full. But yeah, cool. I like it.
That Scholars Guild, they got money, I guess.
It's a big deal. Yeah, you need a big building to hold all those scrolls and stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's take a break. We'll take a break here, and then we'll come back and we'll play a game. We'll play the Burning Wheel. So stick around. We'll roll some dice and we'll see where the adventure takes us when we return.